Welcome to our Lacers Planning for Retirement webinar. Today we'll be covering some retirement planning basics and the following topics: mental preparation, understanding the Lacers plan, service and service credit, retirement eligibility and allowance calculation, service credit purchases and reciprocity, and last but not least, navigating income gaps in retirement. We have a lot to cover, so let's get started. As you start to think about retiring, you should seriously ask yourself if you're ready. You may have the years of service to be eligible, but planning for retirement is just as much of a mental preparation as it is financial. You'll need to chart out your financial needs and to determine for yourself if your retirement income is enough for you to live comfortably. It'll also be important to try and pay off or consolidate your debt prior to retirement so that you can maximize your retirement income. Here at Lacers, we're going to give you a solid foundation for the financial aspect of your retirement. And while you decide if you're ready to retire, we really encourage that you retire to something rather than just away from work. Think about what you envision yourself doing. Maybe you'll start a small business, travel overseas, or maybe you decide to get more involved with your community and volunteer your time and skills. The key will be to make sure that you have plans, goals, and hobbies, and understand there will be some challenges in retirement as well, whether it be new routines, new responsibilities, or even some new stressors. Right now, many of us may think that work is really stressful, but when we think about it, working does a lot more for us. For one, it structures our time. We know what time we have to be at work every day, and many of us have regularly scheduled meetings or tasks that we must complete. It also provides mental stimulation through on-the-job training and the different application of our skills for the different tasks that we are asked to do. Not only that, our employment with the city gives us an identity. We all have our own classifications. You could be a management analyst, senior admin clerk, engineer, and everything in between. This title is something that you can currently identify with while working for the city, but just know it won't necessarily follow you out into retirement. So just be prepared for both the mental and physical transitions from the workplace. Retirement is also going to have an effect on your relationships. Take a look at this list and think for a moment how choosing to retire may affect them. For example, once you retire, will your children expect you to be a babysitter for your grandchildren? If this is not in your own plans for retirement, make sure you have a conversation with your kids prior to retirement to make sure that they have realistic expectations of you. How about your friends? Will they also be retired and have the free time to do all of the activities that you want to do? Or will you have to make some new friends? So as you prepare for retirement, keep in mind that it may have an effect on your relationships with family and friends. Now that you understand some of the mental preparation that is necessary, take a look at the steps with Lacers you should take when planning to retire. Lacers schedules many planning for retirement seminars a month where you can get a crash course in understanding your benefits. It is highly recommended that you attend at least one of these sessions prior to actually filing for retirement. From there, you should decide on a specific retirement date and contact Lacers 90 days prior to that date to start the official process. You'll complete forms, gather some required documents, and attend your retirement counseling session with Lacers either in person with a group or virtually online. In this next session, you'll get an introduction to Lacers and its membership so you can gain a better understanding of the Lacers plan. This is the cover of our LACER's summary plan description for Tier 1 members. It's your user manual guide to your LACER's retirement plan. Most of your questions about retirement through LACER's can be answered by this book. So it's a really great resource, especially as you approach retirement, as it will go over everything from retirement eligibility and allowance calculation to survivor benefits and more. You can access a soft copy 24/7 at lacers.org or contact the LACER's Member Service Center to request a hard copy be mailed to you. The governing body that guides LACER's decisions on all things related to the plan is the LACER's Board of Administration. There are 7 members, and the important thing to note is that 4 of the 7 are actually LACER's members, which means that they too have a stake in whatever decisions are made because it will also have an effect on their benefits. Board meetings are open to the public and happen every second and fourth Tuesday of the month. You can even tune in remotely to listen in on meetings or hear previously recorded sessions by heading to the LACER's website. So who are LACER's members? They are non-sworn, non-DWP City of Los Angeles employees. Both fire and police, as well as the Department of Water and Power, have their own separate pension plans. You are automatically enrolled into the LACER's plan upon being hired and have been contributing a mandatory 11% of your gross salary towards your LACER's retirement. To get a better understanding of how your retirement allowance is funded, we now take a look at an overview of the LACER's Pension Trust Fund. This chart simply shows you what goes into the fund and how LACER's utilizes it. First, your employee contributions. This is the 11% that all Tier 1 members contribute to their LACER's retirement. You cannot decrease or increase this amount. Next, our LACER's investment returns are also added. LACER's has its own investment section that professionally manages and invests funds on behalf of the plan. Then, last but not least, the City of Los Angeles also contributes to the LACER's Trust Fund, with a percentage of city payroll being sent to the plan. With this money, LACER's is able to pay for retirement allowances, health benefits, and survivor benefits for LACER's members and their beneficiaries. Retirement planning can get confusing, so it's important to understand the type of plan that LACER's is. It is a pension plan, also known as a defined benefit plan or 401A. Not to be confused with a 401k, the LACER's plan offers lifetime benefits to its members based on a formula that we will go over on an upcoming slide. Once retired, you will receive a retirement allowance every month for the rest of your life. And this benefit will also include cost of living adjustments annually. It is important to know that collecting a retirement allowance is optional as long as you are vested with LACER's. You may, however, choose to take a refund of your contributions instead, but there are key differences that you should be aware of. So in this example, we'll be going over Angelina's situation. Angelina is a city employee with a salary of $65,000. Her service credit is at 26 years, and her own contributions on file with LACER's is $80,000. Let's say one day Angelina decides that she doesn't want to work for her department anymore, but for whatever reason doesn't want to file for retirement. At the very least, Angelina is entitled to a refund of her own contributions, which would be $80,000. In actuality, all refunds are taxed, but let's just say that she receives the full $80,000 in this example. She pulls out that money from her LACER's account at age 60, and the purple bar on the chart that represents her own contributions lasts her until about age 63. When this money runs out, Lacers will not step in to provide anything else for Angelina because when she signed her refund paperwork, she also signed a waiver forfeiting her right to any future benefits, including a retirement allowance from Lacers. At this point, she will be on her own to find another source of income because Lacers will not step in to provide anything else. Now, in an alternate situation, Angelina decides she wants to retire from the city. So Lacers calculates her monthly benefit by using her service credit and salary. Looking at the chart, at age 60, she retires and starts collecting her retirement allowance. And the purple bar, which again represents her own contributions, lasts her in this case until about age 72. At that point, even though Angelina's own contributions have run out, she's still entitled to her same monthly check for the rest of her life. So up until age 82, when she eventually passes away, she still collects her Lacers monthly allowance. But there is a difference between age 60 to 72 versus age 72 to 82. From age 60 to 72, her monthly check is being paid for using a combination of the three sources. So it's a mixture of her own contributions, the city's contributions, and the Lacers investment returns. But once she exhausts her own contributions, from age 72 onwards, her monthly check is only paid for using the city's contributions and the Lacers investment returns. Many of us will likely outlive our contributions, as in once you pass away, there will be nothing left of your own contributions in your Lacers account. The following irrevocable decisions will be presented to you during the retirement process, and what you decide between the two will determine what happens to your unused contributions when you pass away after retiring. One option is called cash refund annuity, which says that after your death and the death of your spouse or domestic partner, what's left of your unused contributions will be paid out to a beneficiary. So, for example, if Angelina passed away after retirement and there was still $10,000 of her contributions left in her account, that amount will be a lump sum payment to her beneficiaries. The second option is called life annuity, which allows you to increase your monthly retirement allowance. However, if you pass away and there's a remaining balance in your Lacers account, it will not be paid out to a beneficiary and will be returned to the Lacers Trust Fund. At your counseling session, your counselor will provide you with the information of when, to the very date, your own contributions with Lacers will run out, in addition to how much more money you'll receive on your monthly allowance if you do choose life annuity. Ultimately, the decision will be up to you and again is irrevocable once you retire. Now that you have a better understanding of your Lacers benefit, let's take a look at some terms that will help determine your retirement eligibility and retirement allowance with the terms city service and service credit. First, service is the term that accounts for the years you've been a city employee contributing to Lacers, while service credit accounts for the hours you've worked as an active Lacers member. Let's go over an example to see how this works. Liz works full-time, 40 hours a week for 6 years, and Dan works half-time, 20 hours a week for 6 years. What is Liz's total service? 6 years. What is Liz's total service credit? Also 6 years. Now, what is Dan's total service? 6 years. And what is Dan's total service credit? It's 3 years because, again, service credit is based on hours worked. And as a half-time employee, Dan earns half of the service credit a full-time employee would earn. Service is the term that will help determine your retirement eligibility. So when you may retire, but also your eligibility for a health benefit through LACERS. While service credit will determine the amount of your retirement benefit. So how much you'll get on your monthly retirement allowance, but also how much of a health subsidy you will receive if you do choose a health plan with LACERS. Next, let's discuss a term that will affect your retirement eligibility only: continuous service. Continuous service is determined by a break in city service of not more than 3 years. In some cases, you need a certain amount of continuous service in order to be eligible to retire. So let's go over an example. Let's say you work for the city for 4 years, take a break for 2 years, and come back to work another 5 years. In this case, because your break was not more than 3 years, your years of service will be added together to give you 9 years of continuous service. On the other hand, if you work for the city for 5 years, take a break for 4 years, and come back to work another 2 years, since your break is more than 3 years, LACERS will not add your service together, and 5 years will be your continuous service. Now the numbers could be reversed. You could work for the city for 2 years, take a break for 5, and come back to work another 15 years. LACERS will always use your highest period of time between the two, but LACERS will never combine the two periods of time to determine your continuous service. These next slides will cover retirement eligibility and how to calculate your retirement allowance. Here are the eligibility requirements for a normal service retirement. You can be age 55 or older with at least 30 years of city service, or age 60 or older with at least 10 years of continuous service, or you can be age 70 or older regardless of the length of your city service. LACERS also offers an early service retirement option. And here are the eligibility requirements for this reduced allowance. You can be age 55 or older with at least 10 years of continuous service, or you can be younger than age 55 with at least 30 years of city service. LACERS will calculate your retirement allowance based on your service credit, final compensation, which is an average of your highest paid 12 months with the city, and the LACERS Tier 1 retirement factor of 2.16%. It is important to note that those applying for early retirement should be aware that an early retirement reduction factor will also be used in their calculation and will be based on age. Here's a basic overview of the early reduction factors based on age. There is a complete chart towards the back of the summary plan description that is more specific. For example, there is a certain reduction factor if you're age 48 and a half or say 57 and a quarter. Using this chart, those who choose to file early retirement must add the corresponding reduction factor into their calculation. So what does your final compensation include? Well, it's going to be based on your base salary and most regularly assigned bonuses and premium pay. It will not include overtime, daily or non-regularly assigned bonuses such as acting pay, reimbursements, car or uniform allowances, or payments in lieu of benefits. If you ever have a question about a bonus you're receiving, if it is pensionable, you can look it up in your MOU or reach out to your department's Human Resources section for assistance. Using the information we just discussed, here's how you will calculate your retirement allowance. Simply take your final compensation times your service credit times the retirement factor of 2.16%, and, if applicable, times your early retirement reduction factor based on your age, and that will equal your monthly benefit. Here we have an example of a normal retirement calculation. In this case, let's say that you're age 65 with 20.25 years of service credit, and your final compensation is $4,000. You'd multiply 4,000 times 20.25 times 2.16%, which equals a monthly retirement allowance of $1,749.60. Next, we have an example of an early retirement calculation. In this case, let's say that you're age 55, have 20.25 years of service credit, and your final compensation is $4,000. You'd multiply 4,000 times 20.25 times 2.16% times 0.925, the early reduction factor for age 55, which gives you a retirement allowance of $1,618.38. You can always calculate these estimates by hand, but for those of you who create a MyLasers account, you can have an electronic estimated calculate for you based on your specific payroll information. You can run multiple estimates for various dates without having to do the longhand calculation. For those of you who have not yet created a MyLasers account, we encourage you to request a PIN be sent to you so you can have secure access to your Lasers information 24/7 and generate these useful estimates from the convenience of your home. In this next section, we'll discuss how you can potentially boost your retirement allowance through service credit purchases and reciprocity. Depending on your previous employment history, you may be eligible to purchase service credit to add to your time with Lasers. The different types that are offered are government service buybacks, redeposits, back contributions, and public service buybacks. Government service buybacks allows active members to purchase service credit for periods of full-time service with other governmental entities which are not eligible for reciprocity, and/or uncompensated maternity leave that was for at least 1 full month. Examples of other entities include the federal government, other state governments, and other public agencies within California. Lasers also offers redeposits for those who left city service and took a refund of their contributions and then were later rehired by the city. They can regain their service credit, but they need to redeposit everything that they had previously withdrawn. Back contributions will allow members to purchase service credit for city employment when they were not a Lasers member. This can include part-time city employment when you are paying into the pension savings plan or workers' comp temporary disability time state rate. For example, if you're a student worker, relief retirement worker, or occupied a seasonal or temporary employment with, say, Rec and Parks, that time is eligible to be bought back to be added to your service credit with Lasers. Public service buybacks are available to those active members who take approved leaves without pay from the city, but their total combined leave must have been for at least 6 months. An example of this would be an approved educational leave to obtain or finish a degree or certificate. If you are interested in initiating any of these service credit purchases, here are a few important tips. Explore your opportunities to purchase any potential service credit early so that you can lock in the lowest rate possible and your paperwork is processed efficiently. You'll also need to keep in mind that you need to pay off your contracts for service credit purchases before you retire to be used in your calculation for retirement. And lastly, if you're divorced, you should present lacers with a copy of your finalized divorce decree to see if it'll have an impact on your retirement allowance. For those of you who have worked for another California public agency, you may want to look into Reciprocity. This is an agreement among certain California public retirement systems, allowing you to move from one to another within a specific time frame, allowing some portability of retirement benefits. If you successfully establish Reciprocity, not only will you receive a retirement allowance from each agency, but both agencies will use your highest final compensation between the two to calculate your benefits. Now, there are some requirements that you do need to meet first. So first, you must have moved between the two reciprocal agencies within a 6-month period of time. So if it took you 7 or 8 months to move between agencies, you're automatically not able to establish reciprocity. You also must have left your contributions on file with each employer. So when you left the first agency, you couldn't have taken a refund of your contributions. And then lastly, you must retire from each employer on the same day. This will require some research on your part to check what the eligibility requirements are from the other agency, as they can and are likely different than that of lacers. If you have any questions about service credit purchases or reciprocity, feel free to reach out to a buyback counselor at Lacers via the 1-800 number or by emailing lacers.services@lacers.org. As mentioned earlier, Lacers and DWP are two completely separate pension systems. So if you are planning on transferring or promoting to DWP, just be aware that the retirement benefits offered there are much different than the Lacers plan. We highly encourage you to reach out to DWP's Member Service Center to get accurate information so that you can make an informed transition. In this final section, we'll be covering some of the income gaps members may experience in retirement and how to plan for them. It certainly is a benefit to be able to count on your monthly Lacers retirement allowance, which should be considered the foundation for your retirement financial planning. However, depending on your needs and lifestyle choices in retirement, it may or may not cover all of your expected expenses. You can calculate the percentage of your final compensation that you'll receive in retirement by simply taking your service credit, or how long you plan to work for the city, and multiply it by the retirement factor of 2.16%. For example, a city employee with 30 years of service credit will receive 64.8% of their final compensation. Let's next take a look at a sample city pay stub to get a better understanding of deductions that will not fall you into retirement. There's the 11% that's taken out for mandatory retirement contributions, which includes health defrayal and ERIP recovery. There's FICA Medicare, deferred comp, city parking, union dues, and any other elective deductions you have chosen to take in out of your active city paycheck. In that sample pay stub, all those deductions added to about 18% that city employee was not receiving on a biweekly basis. So, if you compare in this case the 82% that this person made while working to the 64.8% they will receive while retired, the income gap becomes a lot more manageable. It went from well above 30% down to 17.2%. There are other ways for you to make the income gap less, but Lacers especially encourages you to look into contributing to deferred comp to supplement your Lacers retirement allowance. There are many investment options for you to choose from, and Voya staff are available at Main City Hall or via phone and email to discuss your options. And that concludes this session of the basics of planning for retirement with Lacers. Thanks for tuning in, and feel free to contact Lacers with any questions you may have.